You may know about food allergies because your child's school has banned treats in the classroom, or maybe you've tuned in for recent stories about the spike in the price of EpiPens. For people trying to cope with food allergies, the challenges go far beyond outrage over the price of life-saving medications. Our own Megan Lynch and several other KMOX staffers are among millions of families who have to be on guard daily. If their children are exposed to the wrong food, it could mean a trip to the ER or worse. This week on KMOX, Megan takes you inside their world. This is Food Allergies, the Deadly Dish.
For 1 in 13 children in the United States, what they put in their mouths or even touch could be life or death.
My throat will close and I will die.
The number of children diagnosed with food allergies has increased dramatically.
Why are we producing so many kids these days with food allergies?
It's a challenge for schools.
We did ruffle some feathers in regards to the birthday treats.
Constant worry and heartache for parents.
My heart sinks when I see a call from the school.
Socially and emotionally, is he going to be okay?
The world is full of their allergens, and frankly, they just need to learn that and live with it. But at the same time, if he wants a hot dog, is it really too much to ask?
Peanut butter, bread, cheese, yes, even hot dogs, foods that are staples in many homes. They contain ingredients, proteins that some people's bodies reject as dangerous invaders. Milk, eggs, peanuts, tree nuts, soy, wheat, fish, and shellfish are the top 8, but there are plenty of others. Even trace amounts can be a problem.
We recommend total avoidance.
Lila Kurtz is a pediatric nurse practitioner at St. Louis Children's Hospital. She spends much of her time educating families on what to do.
Very important to be reading food labels.
And what to look for. Rash, hives, vomiting.
The worst kind would be respiratory associated symptoms, where you truly are having difficulty breathing and now your throat may be closing off.
An allergic reaction to food can become an emergency in seconds.
It can be a fatal condition.
The Allergy and Immunology Clinic at Cardinal Glennon Children's Hospital is seeing more cases every year. Dr. Bradley Becker.
Trends have been up significantly, over 100% increase in the last 15 years or so for peanut.
Food allergies overall rose 50% in a 14-year span. While much public focus is put on peanuts, any allergen can be dangerous.
If you're severely allergic to milk or egg or tree nuts or fish or shellfish, they can be just as serious.
Researchers are stumped as to why there's been an explosion. One of the most quoted theories is the so-called hygiene hypothesis, that we're cleaner and that's impacted our immune systems. Others have speculated it's genetically modified foods or possibly chemicals in the environment. One study is currently looking at whether increased use of folic acid by pregnant women is a cause. There's no cure. Doctors have shifted recommendations on introducing risky foods. Until recently, parents were told to delay. A landmark study now appears to show that giving a child peanut in the first year of life decreases the risk of peanut reaction later. Plus, there are some promising therapies. One is called oral immunotherapy. Patients are given increasing amounts of a food to build up tolerance. Dr. Becker points out it's not without grave risks.
About 30% or more of the children do have allergic reactions to food, even after building the dose, and many of these reactions are serious and do require epinephrine.
Epinephrine, a form of adrenaline. Patients with severe allergies are told to have it on hand at all times. While food allergies are blamed for more than 200,000 ER visits a year, swift use of epinephrine is often credited with keeping the actual number of deaths from food allergies relatively low. Parents have to be vigilant every minute of the day.
Cooking in my kitchen is sort of like operating in an ER.
Their children have to cope with far more than a restricted diet.
He took the sandwich and then put it up by my face and you're going to die.
The daily strain of living with food allergies in our next report. Megan Lynch, News Radio 1120 KMOX.
Nearly 6 million children in the United States live with food allergies, and the number is growing. As you heard on KMOX yesterday, it can be a life-threatening condition. For many families, that's meant some big adjustments. From their kitchen table to their social life, food allergy families opened up to KMOX's Megan Lynch about the stressful reality of daily life. Now more in our series of special reports on food allergies, the deadly dish.
A lot of times I think, people must think I'm a crazy germaphobe. Like, look at that lady wiping down the high chair. But it's not about germs. It's about something that could send him into anaphylactic shock.
Before she can ever sit down at a restaurant, Robin Kirk has to pull out the wipes and go over every surface her children might touch. When even a trace amount of food can trigger a reaction, food allergy parents are always on guard. The Kirks took peanuts out of their pantry altogether when oldest son Andrew was diagnosed. It wasn't as easy when they found out his younger brother Kyle was allergic to milk.
But at that point, we had a 4-year-old who lived on mac and cheese and grilled cheese sandwiches and goldfish crackers.
It's been an adjustment.
It's been hard to get him to eat much at home because, the dairy-free versions of things are not good. The dairy-free cheese is not good. We went through, I think, probably 7 or 8 alternative milks before we found one Andrew would drink.
By the way, they spend almost $8 a gallon on that alternative milk. Families learn food is no longer convenient.
It's just not really possible with a food allergy kid to drive through McDonald's and grab everyone chicken nuggets on the go.
Carrie Schindler sits at a coffee shop. If her son Henry had joined her, she would have called ahead to ask about ingredients and preparation. He's allergic to dairy, egg, peanut, and tree nuts. To be on the safe side, she would have brought him a lunch.
There's so much social interactions involved around food that I don't want my kid to feel left out.
Food allergy parents pack a lot of extra food. They bake safe cupcakes for every party. They leave a stash of snacks at school. They swap out candy at holidays. But Carrie says it's not always enough.
There are just sometimes I can't control the situation. The danger is just too great. We're just going to have to say no.
What grieves many of these parents the most is the frustration of getting people to understand.
Ice cream sundaes in the class could kill my kid. And it's really as simple as that, and I think that's a hard concept for people to grasp.
And I still remember a mom telling me, well, I bought the cupcakes out of the freezer section, so they're okay. And I remember looking at this lady thinking, you don't get it. That was one of the times I remember sitting in my car crying.
Melissa Short says she knows sometimes people think she's crazy, but she can't worry about that.
They didn't hold their child when he was gasping for breath. They didn't have him in their arms trying to run him out to an ambulance.
Melissa's son Brennan is in 6th grade, a preteen, about to enter the years when young people are at greatest risk of a fatal food reaction. Brennan knows what will happen if he eats the wrong thing.
My throat will close and I will die.
Yet when asked if he checks ingredients every time, he admits he doesn't.
That scares me to the core.
His physical well-being isn't the only concern.
Socially and emotionally, is he going to be okay?
It's estimated that more than a third of kids with food allergies have been bullied. Often it includes threats with food.
He took the sandwich and then put it up by my face and here, you're going to die.
Brennan passes it off as just part of what he has to deal with. For many young people with food allergies, the daily vigilance can take a toll.
Sometimes I can just smell peanut butter randomly, and I don't like it. It gets me nervous sometimes.
12-year-old Wesley Powell is constantly thinking of what can hurt him. His mom, Erica, says he was a candidate for oral food therapy to reduce his risks.
Called quickly and got him on the list, but he won't. Wesley won't do it.
I'm too nervous. I just don't want to eat it.
Wesley always makes sure to sit away from other kids eating peanut butter in the school lunchroom. He wishes one of them understood.
Doesn't know what it feels like to have an allergy. And I'd like them to feel it. That it's bad for you and it can kill you.
Schools have become a battleground.
Peanut butter can be safely served in any school.
Peanut bans have become more common, but does that really help children with food allergies? That's in our next report. Megan Lynch, News Radio 1120, KMOX.
This week's look at food allergies, the deadly dish, continues this morning. The institution that's likely been impacted the most by the dramatic rise in food allergies is the education system. From daycares to colleges, schools have had to adapt to parent demands and federal regulations. With statistics showing there could be 1 or 2 kids in every classroom dealing with a food allergy, it's becoming an issue every parent has to deal with.
Asthma has always been the number one issue that faces a school nurse. And we learned in this past year that food allergies has taken that role.
Joy Krieger, Executive Director of the Asthma and Allergy Foundation of America, St. Louis chapter. 20% of children who have food allergies have had a reaction at school. Some of the most severe reactions involve kids who have never even been diagnosed. Districts have responded with food bans. That's prompted backlash.
We read articles all the time about certain schools that said, just take your child out of the school and go somewhere else.
The CDC has issued lengthy recommendations for controlling food allergens at schools in the U.S. Those do suggest creating food-free zones in classrooms, libraries, and other common areas.
Those guidelines specifically talk about the limitations of bans and actually recommend against them because they create a false sense of security for students and for those who are charged with student care.
Sherry Coleman Collins, registered dietitian and nutritionist, she works for the National Peanut Board.
If the point is to try to protect food allergic children and prevent anaphylaxis, you'd have to ban every potential allergen that could cause anaphylaxis, and that doesn't make sense.
Collins contends peanut butter can be safely served as long as schools take the right steps to prevent cross-contact.
It's pretty amazing that people focus so much on food allergy or on peanut allergy when it's such a tiny percentage of the population.
Supporters of peanut and other food bans in schools say the focus is legitimate, that one child's life is more important than an inconvenience. There's also great concern about the mental well-being of children with food allergies who deal with isolation, exclusion, anxiety, and worse, as this PSA points out.
You wouldn't think the cafeteria would be a scary place. But last year, someone wiped peanut butter on me.
Would you believe that 1/3 of all kids with food allergies are bullied because of them?
Schools have other considerations. Food allergies can be considered a disability under federal law, requiring special accommodations. For many of those reasons, school districts have decided the best policy for all of their students is better safe than sorry.
None of our products in our cafeteria contain peanuts, tree nuts, or even have the statement made in a factory where peanuts or tree nuts are produced.
The Melville School District is not completely peanut-free. Katie Kester is Director of School Food and Nutrition Services.
Right now, our stance is whoever's packing the lunch at home knows that food item is safe for their child to eat, and they're the one consuming it. So I never want to tell a parent what to pack for their own child.
For food that's being shared, Melville decided no more homemade goodies.
We did ruffle some feathers in regards to the birthday treats.
Kester says food is still allowed for classroom celebrations. It's just controlled.
We have a birthday treat order guide that contains about 4 or 5 food items that all families must utilize. It all came about due to food allergies.
I kick off the school year saying at Glenridge School it's not about food.
No food-related parties, no treats for birthdays. Kids get other rewards on their special day. Glenridge Principal Beth Scott says in the Clayton School District, no peanuts or peanut butter are served by the food service, nor are they allowed in lunch boxes for kindergarten through 2nd grade.
And every year you may get one incoming parent of a new kindergarten child saying, "That's all my child will eat is peanut butter. What do you mean by this?" And we break the news to them gently and say, so now you have the summer to practice eating something different.
Scott says she tries to make all parents see that they are partners.
Because they would hate it if it was their child with the allergy that could be life-threatening and others around them weren't in compliance.
People with food allergies have to eat, but sometimes it's like playing Russian roulette.
Undeclared food allergens on packaged food is the number one reason for recalls.
Confusion over food labeling in our next report. Megan Lynch, News Radio 1120 KMOX.
This week, KMOX News takes you inside the food allergy world. For children with severe food allergies, doctors often recommend strict avoidance, no contact with their food triggers at all. But it's not necessarily that easy. When consumers see or what they see on food labels and allergy statements is not always what they get. Megan Lynch continues our series, Food Allergies, The Deadly Dish.
You'll see the food allergy parent in the grocery aisle, holding up a package or can, squinting to read the fine print. When Carrie Schindler's son was diagnosed, she quickly learned how many products include milk, eggs, peanuts, and tree nuts.
I spent hours probably in the store trying to find a brand of cracker or a loaf of bread that would meet his dietary needs and ours as well.
Just because Schindler finds something on one shopping trip doesn't mean it will be a sure bet forever.
Every single time I have to read the label, and then sure enough, people change their ingredient list, and then I have to go start that process all over again.
Labeling for food allergens is governed by federal law, but only covers the 8 most common: milk, eggs, peanuts, tree nuts, soy, wheat, fish, and shellfish. Products regulated by the FDA are supposed to list the common name of an ingredient. For example, if something has whey, the manufacturer should put the common name milk, either in the ingredient list or just below it. Beyond that, it gets murky.
I can't tell you how many times I ask a vendor, is your product peanut-free? Yes, it is. and then you turn it around and you realize there may be language on there made in the same facility as peanuts.
Jennifer Jobrack is Senior National Director of Advocacy for FAIR, Food Allergy Research and Education. Jobrack says there's no guarantee you'll get any warning at all.
All of those are arbitrary, voluntary, at the discretion of the manufacturer, whether to include them, and if so, what to say in them.
The danger is consumers are left to interpret what they mean. As you'll hear in this report from CBS's WCCO-TV, that was the case in January 2016 for a Minnesota man.
The parents of a 22-year-old Anoka County man are speaking out through their grief.
Their son died after an intense reaction to a peanut allergy. Bruce Kelly had eaten chocolates from a box that didn't contain peanuts, but was manufactured at a factory that used peanuts and other products. Days earlier, he had eaten some of the same chocolates without any negative reaction.
While some consumers might think an advisory is simply a way for companies to cover themselves legally, one industry representative tells KMOX News they're supposed to be there for a good reason.
These should be very rare circumstances when these types of labels are put on a product.
Dr. Leon Bruner is Executive Vice President for Science and Regulatory Affairs and Chief Science Officer at the Grocery Manufacturers Association. Bruner says these statements should mean that despite the best controls in a manufacturing plant, allergens cannot be avoided. FAIR's Jennifer Jobrack says consumers have a right to be concerned. Take a recent study on dark chocolate bars done by the FDA.
Only 6 listed milk as an ingredient. 51 of them actually contain trace amounts of milk.
Jobrack says undeclared food allergens top the list of FDA recalls by a long shot.
In 2015, there were 58 recalls for undeclared allergens, representing more than 10 million pounds of food.
Compared to just 3 recalls for salmonella and half a dozen recalls for listeria contamination, food allergens are a far greater issue.
Which many would say are equally, if not more dangerous than these pathogens because they can kill within minutes.
Jobrack is waiting to see whether recent changes in federal food safety guidelines will make a difference. Manufacturers are now required to document and demonstrate how they avoid cross-contact in their plants. Dr. Leon Bruner.
If there is a risk that an allergen could end up in a product and create a hazard, then the manufacturer is now obligated to put controls in place to make sure that those allergens don't get in the food.
Food labeling isn't the only area where advocates are pushing for change.
Normal ambulances don't carry EpiPens. You have to have the cardiac unit.
More on that as we conclude our series, Food Allergies, The Deadly Dish. Megan Lynch, News Radio 1120, KMOX.
With you for this week. 2 decades ago, it was rare to know a child who had a food allergy. Now 1 in 13 children have the condition. Food allergy advocates have gone from isolation to a broad community seeking more protection. Today, KMOX's Megan Lynch concludes our series of special reports on food allergies, the deadly dish.
Clap your hands!
Children wiggle to the music. This is Strides for Safe Kids, a gathering of families who understand what it means to live with a list like this.
We have 12 identified food allergies, so peanut, tree nut, milk, egg, garlic, onion, kiwi, avocado, ham, coconut, and chickpea and sesame.
The explosion in food allergies has more families seeking support. The St. Louis region has its own Facebook group, Gateway Feast, where moms and dads share everything from safe recipes to frustrations. It was food allergy parents' repeated objections on social media that helped spark a national outcry about the rising price of EpiPens.
Mylan tells CBS News the EpiPen's price has changed over time to better reflect important product features.
It used to cost less than $50 per case. That was 9 years ago. The price is now around $600 for the 2 pens.
Advocates say there are other battles to fight.
Your experience as a food allergic individual traveling on the airlines is pretty much left to the individual airline's discretion.
Scott Riccio is Senior Vice President for Education and Advocacy with FAIR, Food Allergy Research and Education. Will that tiny pack of peanuts really cause a problem? Researchers have found residue on tray tables and seats.
And the amounts that are found there are certainly enough to cause allergic reactions.
Disability laws that cover public places don't apply to airlines. Commercial flights are stocked with epinephrine. Most flight crews are prohibited from using it. You have to hope there's a medical professional with a ticket.
I think we've been fortunate not to have a major disaster at this point on the airlines.
Other potential tragedies are closer to home.
I found it scary that I had more authority to deliver my son's medication than someone who's taken months and months of classes.
Erin Mallower is author of Allergy Schmallergy, a blog about her son's multiple severe allergies. She's written about the so-called 911 lottery.
Not every ambulance carries epinephrine, and not all emergency medical personnel are authorized to use it even when it is present.
It depends on where you live and who responds to the call.
432.
In Missouri, advanced life support units typically carry epinephrine. They're staffed by paramedics. But a basic life support ambulance isn't likely to carry any of the life-saving drugs.
The people inside are typically EMT basics. They are not authorized to provide injections by syringe, but they can assist a patient with their pre-prescribed auto-injector like an EpiPen.
Washington University's Dr. David Tan. Tan points out in the St. Louis metro region, most basic ambulances are for routine patient transportation. It's the advanced units, staffed by at least one paramedic, that answer emergencies.
If they were to call 911, they should not feel any anxiety that the ambulance coming won't have epinephrine or won't have personnel that could deliver that life-saving medication.
There could be exceptions, say at events where there are only first aid stations or in rural areas where scheduling and availability of advanced service providers may be a challenge. To get around those issues, some states have mandated all ambulances carry epinephrine auto-injectors, and they allow any EMT to use them.
That would represent a tremendous financial burden on a medication that is not typically going to be used that often.
That's what fire protection districts and ambulance services discovered in Illinois. They were spending thousands of dollars every year to replace the devices when they expired. A change in Illinois law will allow all levels of EMTs to administer epinephrine by syringe, a much less expensive option. Could that be a solution in Missouri? Tan says it would depend on resources and training. The bottom line, someone with severe food allergies should have their own auto-injectors and know how to use them in an emergency.
By the time an ambulance comes, the patient may be too far gone to even benefit from the epinephrine that's administered by the ambulance crew. Anaphylaxis can deteriorate that fast.
Food is a necessity. It's woven into so many of our social activities, but it also brings grave risks.
Perhaps some of us are overprotective, perhaps some of us are helicopter parents, but it's because we don't know. When we send our child to school where they're surrounded with something that could kill them, every day you think, the phone rings. Are they going to tell me my child is in the hospital?
More than restrictions and regulations, families long for understanding and help to keep their kids safe one more day. This has been Food Allergies, The Deadly Dish. Megan Lynch, News Radio 1120, KMOX.